one of the thoughts that's running through your mind and that you'd like the citizens to follow through with action is on our representation in the assemblies, whether it's the county assembly, the Senate, or the National Assembly. And you're saying that you'd like us to think of specific cadre of candidates, and you want us to then put a majority of them in Parliament. Is that correct?
Correct.
Bob Njagi, shika mic.
Asante for giving me the mic. The big idea here, which I want to share with the world, is that we need to transit from what you call the traditional party politics, which basically anchor what we're calling tribalism and negative ethnicity in our country. And the only way to free ourselves from tribal politics is then to go the opposite of the enablers of this tribal politics, which is the political parties. If you look at, so we are saying that we need to vote more independent candidates in the next elections from the presidency all the way to the MCA, so that we can free our institutions from the capture of political parties. How so? How are the institutions captured when you talk about state capture? A state capture is when the arms of government are infiltrated either by agents within the state or outside the state to limit them from undertaking their duties. For instance, Parliament. Parliament is meant to protect the interest of the people, but we have seen times against number that the members of Parliament who are aligned to one political party or another normally have served the interest of the party leaders, not the interest of the people. So we hope that the independent movement could be an opening whereby Kenyans can have representation that puts the interest of the people first, not the interest of the state or the interest of the political parties, as we have seen with the recent passing of the finance bill, where the political parties come together to conspire against the will of the people. And you see, the reason here is that Article 1 of the Constitution gives all sovereign powers to the people, but it limits how they can exercise these powers. It talks about direct representation and indirect representation. The political parties have captured the indirect representation because we have to go through the political parties to get to power, okay? And so how then do we create an alternative leadership structure? We are saying that we have to get outside the political parties through the independent movements and elect individuals, not political parties, but individuals who can be held accountable by the people. If you elect an independent member of parliament and he fails to represent the people in parliament, perhaps he's bought, like some have been bought, then the people can then use their powers to recall this member of parliament. So we are now organizing ourselves under the Free Kenya movement, which is a coalition of independent leaders, because the disadvantage that independent candidates have over political parties is that the political parties have the benefit of organizing amongst themselves. So you have the president, the governor, the MC and the MP working, campaigning together. So it gives an advantage over the independent candidate. What we have done then is that we have created or established what we're calling a coalition of independents, so that we are pushing towards an independent government. A president who shall be independent, with 47 governors, majority of whom should be independent, senators as well. We have seen a good example of Governor Kawera Mwangaza. You see, the independent movement creates an opportunity for women, persons with disabilities, and the youth to participate fully in the elections, because the political parties' processes of nomination normally disadvantage these sectors of society. The youth are normally charged up to 50,000 shillings to participate in a nomination. I was in ODM party in 2017. I was vying for Member of Parliament in Kajiado East. I paid 250,000 shillings just to participate in a process of nomination, which ends up again rigged. So you can imagine the disconnect which the young people feel when they are subjected through these party processes, which are normally have a determined outcome. their favorite candidates. So we are saying that we thank the drafters of the Constitution, the 2010 Constitution, which introduced the independent candidates for the first time. And Eric, if you look at the growth of the independent movement from 2013, we had a few candidates. We had about 4 MPs who were elected as independents in 2013. And then the total number of voters, 1.36% of the total number of votes were to independent candidates. That's in 2013. In 2017, we had 3 presidential candidates, 63 governor candidates, 69 women reps, 605 members of parliament, 2,918 members of the county assemblies vying as independents. That's in 2017. Out of this, we had 1 senator elected, 2 governors elected, 13 members of parliament, and 1 women rep, and 109 MCAs. That's in 2017. So came 2022 elections. What happened? The independent movement was frustrated by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. They came up with regulations towards the elections that required all independent candidates to provide photocopies of their ID cards for their supporters before being cleared to vie. This regulation was not imposed on the political parties. And the reason was that they saw that the movement had over 7,000 candidates who were supposed to vie. So these new regulations, we challenged them in the High Court in a petition E160 of 2022, and we won the petition. The regulations were declared unconstitutional, null and void by Justice Murima. Unfortunately, IBC went ahead to appeal that decision at the Court of Appeal. 3 years later, 2025, they have never filed any appeal. So what they did is that they disenfranchised independent voters from participating in the election. For the first time, we had no independent presidential candidate on the ballot. The only options was Raila Odinga, William Ruto, Wajakoya, and Mwaura. And 8 million Kenyans abstained from voting. That tells you that 8 million voters, especially Gen Zs, the youths, stayed away from the ballot because they did not see any candidate that represents their interests. So what are we doing about this? We have moved to the Court of Appeal with the support of the Kenya Human Rights Commission to ask the Court of Appeal to vacate that order of stay from the High Court so that independent candidates can enjoy their full political rights in the next elections, right? So that will open up another floodgate for more young people, especially the Gen Zs, the women, persons with disabilities, to come under the elections as candidates for independent positions. So this, we believe, is going to be an alternative leadership platform that is going to create a new governance system in this country. Perhaps I might just want to say that we have seen cases of independent leaders in Senegal recently. I think the guy who came in as an independent, was elected as independent. So we hope that Kenyans are warming up and understanding more about this. We are providing more political and civic education on how to vie as a candidate. In the next few weeks, we are going to set up the first independent candidate conference in Nairobi, and we're inviting all leaders who wish to participate in the next elections as independents to come together so that we start providing the alternative leadership. Thank you for the mic.
He gets it.
Thank you.
Well done, Bob. Off the bat, I love your idea.
Asante.
I love the reasoning behind it.
Asante.
I see the logic behind it.
Thank you.
You said you were a member of ODM, 250,000 just to get into the door in the nomination,
yeah.
right? And then what happened after that?
They actually gave a direct ticket to the candidate who went to the ballot. I went to the political, and at the time I used to be a deputy director of elections for ODM, a NEC member. You see? So I'm a NEC member, and yet I'm participating in an election where I'm being rigged out. I actually went to court and sued the party for not actually doing the nominations. And the court ordered them to repeat the nomination, which they failed to repeat. Under a court order. So I saw the challenges that are being faced by young people in political parties. And therefore I opted on a matter of principle to go independent so that the people can elect the candidate directly, not through a party system.
Now, I was listening, and I was like, but I also see where the challenges come in with the idea of having a majority of our representation be independent.
Correct.
One, the political parties have fought very hard to have their place at the table, quote unquote. So there will be, of course, pushback. But when you say that there's a coalition of independent leaders, someone will then ask, what's the difference between that and a party?
The difference is very clear. A political party has certain guidelines and regulations that you must follow. But as an independent, assuming I'm vying for president, I am actually vying for president. Then
you will be vying in 2027.
I will be vying for presidency of the Republic as an independent.
I wish you all the best.
Candidate. Thank you. And we have an independent candidate for governor in Nairobi. So we share the same ideology that we need to liberate the country, to free this country. So to that extent, and to the extent that we are saying we want power to the people, people power. So actually, as Free Kenya movement, what we are pushing for is also changes within this constitution that can open up a structure where people can participate directly through what we're calling the people's governments, all right? So that if you're elected as independent, you don't need the political party structure to support you. You have the people directly you can interact with and engage with as government. That is a system of direct representation which we have put together in a referendum. And the referendum is actually available online, www.freekenya.co.ke. You can open the link, see what we are proposing in terms of changes to the constitution, and then sign that referendum and share it. Thank you.
All right, that was question number one.
Yeah.
So you don't have, with the coalition, you could be like-minded, but you don't exist within the structures of political parties, right?
You see, like, let me give you an example of how we were working. It's a collective.
Yes.
For instance, when we picked on the issue of the finance bill, there was no political party that was involved. It was the people, all right? And they said we're going to reject the finance bill.
Yes.
So once the collective or the people give a certain direction, that's the direction which you move. You move according to the will of the people.
I like that.
Yeah.
My question be, the way human psychology works is you band together because of similar ideologies, similar interests, similar looks, all of that, right? That's why we band in tribes, in countries, all of that. So when we come together and band together because our ideologies are the same, how do you then not have that just become another form of a political party? It might not exist within the structures, but it could be, because at some point we'll be like, okay, we are a coalition of independent leaders, that's true, we share these common ideologies, that's true, but we need systems in place. So you create the systems, and then you create the structures, and then boom, you're a party that's not calling itself a party.
You see, the end is not the party, but to form government. All right? So we are using the coalition to ensure that Kenyans have an opportunity of choosing the right leaders without being subjected through the party bureaucracy. All right? You'll bear me witness, some of the worst governors we have come through the party system. The same people who are looting monies from the public are then again given tickets to participate in the elections. But as an independent, it's the people who are going to vet you. Right? You present yourself, you have your credentials, and the people are the ones who know, is Bob, does he have qualities of integrity or not? But on the other hand, when you follow party politics, one, you're limited to tribe. If you look at the arrangement of our political parties, they're basically tribal formations, all right?
True.
As it's happening right now, even with the ODM and the UDA.
True.
You can hear people from certain backgrounds saying today we are supporting the president simply because he's working with the party leader. So we're wondering, are we moving away from tribal politics to issue-based politics? And through the system of political parties, we cannot do that.
Okay. I was going to actually ask that because I do feel like we are in small strides moving to more issue-based politics, not from the party perspective, because those people are coalescing in their tribal cocoons and representation, but Kenyans are moving to more issue-based politics. Yeah. So then what would be the harm in, as opposed to throwing the whole, throw the baby out with the bathwater? Oh, I'm about to beat the mic. Yeah. As opposed to doing that, why not have issue-based parties, right? Because I think the people who were on the streets in '92 fighting for multipartyism would be like, hey, we fought very hard for a multi-party democracy. If we go the full independent way, we could be killing that. Not full independent, but majority independent.
What I've told you about Kenyan politics is that if the political parties' infrastructure, like for instance, we've never had political party reforms. So if we have had the reforms first, then we can say we do have political parties that can actually stand out as genuine political parties. But what we have today are parties that belong to individuals. They're actually business vehicles for some. They actually make a lot of money from the political parties. So until we do the reforms, I don't think we can honestly say that there is any political party existing today that can stand the test of a genuine political party, as it should be, owned by the membership. All right?
Right.
So then we're talking about
we're such a young democracy.
No, that's an excuse.
You don't want to give us time to figure things out. We got multipartyism in '92. Right? It's now 32 years
What
later.
is the origin of political parties, if I may ask you? If you understand our history as Kenya, a political party, we came out from colonization. And we got independence, apparently. Okay? Now, those who colonized us left us behind with an education system and a governance and political system that they could still kind of manage and manipulate. So we had a one-party system for a long time. Then people clamored for more freedom and more space. Then we got more parties, right? But have people actually gotten power? Have the parties translated into power to the people?
No.
That's why we're talking about Article 1, sovereignty of the people. How can the people exercise their sovereignty directly? All right? Perhaps given another opportunity, I will come and tell you how, through a referendum, we can establish a people-centered government.
Okay.
All right? Yeah.
A couple of issues, and I hear you. I think you have diagnosed our problem quite well in terms of our politics has become tribal.
Correct.
In whichever way you look at it.
Yeah.
So we have then created special purpose tribal vehicles with which to negotiate with other tribes.
Correct.
So that then we can jointly win the majority of the votes and get into power.
Correct.
So our organization is not the special purpose vehicle. It is the DNA of the person that is thinking tribal.
Correct.
So if this person is thinking tribal, they are just coming together into a coalition, and then they call that coalition whatever political party X.
Yeah.
And they say that the leader whom they support can now go and negotiate with the other guys across the reach.
Yes.
And if we come together, then we go and fight together and win more.
Yes.
Now, the issue of saying that we remove this vehicle and we go in directly as individuals, then does not serve the purpose that the people have, created the political party for. Because if we, as Mount Kenya, as Ukambani, as Western, as Nyanza, as, Coast, view ourselves as a sort of homogeneous community, and we have then elevated this one person to be our leader, and they created a special purpose vehicle that we have joined, and you're saying, you go and negotiate for us in a route that we can get into that room as leaders. Our interests are being represented by this person, by the party. Yeah? And collectively, when the person goes and they become a prime minister, cabinet secretary, president, we feel represented in that office. That is our psyche. That's what you've said.
Yes.
So if our psyche is that, now if we start saying that now let's not use a vehicle, let's just elect individuals to go, then we are basically losing our bargaining power. We are losing our negotiation leverage.
Incorrect.
Because the people of Nyanza then will not have one Raila. The people they'll not have one leader. Western will not have Musalia and Speaker Wetangula.
Incorrect, totally.
So they'll not.
That's why. That's
if you
why
send
the
now
system,
all these 10 people,
yeah.
How are they going to negotiate for Nyanza?
And that's why the system cannot work as it is designed. It is failing, you see, because I've just told you, since 1963, we have relied on the system of indirect representation, whereby we say that we have to vote for you to go represent us. Now, the people have been, they have continuously failed to represent the people. So what we are saying is, how do we drain this swamp?
Because cut out the middleman.
At the end of the day, what happens is that political parties is like that saying in Swahili, nyani ni wale wale, misitu ndo inabadilika, which means today you're in party X, tomorrow you'll change the name of the party to party Y. But the people who are in those systems are the same people we have been dealing with, all right? So the problem is that the parties have hijacked, or rather they have taken over the sovereignty of the people. Right. What we are saying is that it's time for people to engage directly with leaders so that we do away with the political parties will still be there. They will have their share of the market, but we have to ensure that we reduce it significantly, probably to around 40%. But the majority of the elected leaders should then be independent. For instance, in parliament, we have 290 members of parliament. Assuming 100 of them are independent, they do not conform to the political parties. It means you have a majority that can go against any finance bill. But if you have 290 MPs, 100 of them belong to Party A, another 100 Party B, the party leaders of Party A and Party B will conspire against the people.
That's true.
And that's what is happening. So we have to create a bypass.
Are
and
independent
the Constitution
leaders incorruptible?
No, they are corruptible. Nobody is incorruptible. I think that's up to where the people also have to exercise due diligence when making a choice. All right? You have to look at the history of the leaders who you're voting for. Have they been implicated in corrupt cases? Have they been in public offices before and embezzled funds? All right? So that information is in public. So as we just need to do, like for instance, when the Gen Zs were trying to get information about a particular person, within 5 minutes they had the whole CV.
Everything,
you know, so it's very easy nowadays to vet anybody from president to MCA,
all the way down.
Yes, yes.
We're going to get into the specifics of now parliamentary business under independence, but before that, how do we fund independent candidates?
Oh yeah, that has been a big challenge because normally the laws that are in place today are so disadvantaged to the independents. There is no funding that comes from the state towards independent candidates. In fact, they're not recognized by the state until 3 months prior to the election when you're cleared by IBC. Okay. All right, so right now, unlike political parties that have a framework of working after the elections, all right, the independents are left on their own to organize. That's why I've told you we are calling out for a meeting soon in the month of April to bring together leaders who are participating as independents or want to participate as independents from governors, presidents, MCAs, so that from that point we mobilize and organize ourselves accordingly. But we also have partners, civil society, whom perhaps can facilitate civic and political education programs. Such kind of partners are very helpful. Yes.
There are many questions. Jackson, are we going for a break or no? No break, okay. So let me read a couple of questions here on YouTube. Boniface says, no, Alex, Mr. Bob Njagi's ideology of this alternative system seems to ignore the fact that our constitution is based on political parties. I think he should start with a comprehensive review of the constitution, and where he's saying also, if your formation is not a political party or a coalition of political parties, you can never be majority, because it says there will be a majority political party or coalition of parties in parliament that from the side that forms the government and so on and so forth. How do you respond to that immediately before we go to the others?
Oh yeah, thank you. He says that the constitution is based on political parties. That is a half-truth. That's why the 2010 constitution introduced the independence all right? Because they saw that there are Kenyans who do not want to belong to any political party, but they still want to participate fully. It's their political right. Even if you're in a party or not, it's your right to participate. So what do? Then you're allowed to participate as an independent person. We may agree on some issues, we may disagree on other issues, and that's the beauty of democracy. So I think Alex should know that political parties have been anchored in the Constitution, so as independent candidates as well. In fact, in the last elections, the total number of independent candidates combined were more than those in the political parties. All right? In the second question, he asked about, can you repeat
It says the majority.
The majority.
How do you declare majority in parliament?
Yes,
Without a political party.
You're not in a coalition of any.
Yes, that is one of the remedies that we sought as independent candidates in our petition of E160 of 2022 that has been stayed at the Court of Appeal. The judge, we were asking that the court pronounces itself that, for instance, if you have 100 members of parliament elected as independents, what stops us from getting even nomination seats as independents, whereas political parties will get slots for nominations, all right? So why is the law biased that if you come from a political party and you win a number of seats, then you are allowed to nominate? So these are some of the outcomes which we want to be legislated upon by Parliament once the petition has been there's been a vacation of stay in the petition. So these are issues that are legislative. We have made proposals which we're going to forward to Parliament to open up that space. If not, then we carry those proposals in our referendum, which we are pushing.
Okay.
Yes.
We have a friend called Joe Mungai who watches us every day from Bonny Lake, Washington State, in the States. He says, Mariam and Latif, we're eager to share our views, but some of us, Zoom would be a viable option. Jackso, Wageshi, let's see if we can consider that. Njagi had my support until where and when he said he wants to run for the presidency. Why? What's the issue, Joe? I mean,
Yeah.
Oh, really?
why, though? Anyway, so that's not something for you to respond, but you'll tell us why you want to be president. We'll give you an opportunity to say that at some point. Okot says, independent candidature does not constitute good governance, given that there is no oversight for decision thereof. As such, an ideology is dead on inception.
I agree with him that independent candidates does not guarantee oversight, and that's why further to being pushing for the independent candidates, we are promoting a popular initiative that will create a system, a new system and structure of governance that we are calling the people's government, that would then directly involve the people themselves to oversight over their own resources.
And explain that one.
I think that will require another show just like this.
Really, eh?
It's the idea that I
just
told
basically,
you.
from there.
Well, basically.
Over the top.
Okay, we want to fight corruption.
Yep.
And the reason why we can't fight corruption is because of the system that we are using to fight corruption. We are still using the indirect representation system. Now, with the people's governments, they will be able and they will be empowered to oversight both the national and the county government projects. Because decisions will be taken and made by the people's governments, and then the county governments and the national governments execute those decisions. But as they execute them, it's the people's governments that oversight all the projects. So for instance, in the village where you come from, there's a people's government at the village level. Now the MCA wants to do a road or a development project. They've been budgeted for, say, 30 million for development. The people's governments will do public participation, all right? Once they do the public participation and they identify their needs, the county government and the national government picks the needs from the people's governments and goes to implement them in the county assemblies and the national assemblies. Now, when, for instance, the county government is supposed to do a road, the contractor, before doing the road, is introduced to the people's government structures. They take over the role of oversight. So he's going to be told that this road is 2 kilometers, tarmacked, is going to cost 60 million. And so the people's government ensure that the contractor does the job as per as per the BQ. Before he is paid, the people's government have to sign and say that the road is complete. That's why you're seeing people like Morara going across the country showing incomplete projects because there's nobody to oversight those projects. So we want to bring in the people to oversee their own projects across the entire country.
We did that in 2010, Bob.
It has never happened.
We did that because we created a people's representative assembly called a county assembly, a national assembly,
a system of
Senate.
Indirect representation again. We're talking of direct representation.
But even the people's government will still be representatives.
Yes.
No, it's a different structure altogether. All the people. You
so
have
all
assemblies.
the people are oversighting this road.
Correct. Like now, for instance, in your area where you stay, there is a town hall where people can meet once in a month. So once in a month, there's an assembly within your area, estate, for instance. Now, in that assembly, the only people that you choose are 11, call them committee members. Their job is not to execute. Their job is just to facilitate the assembly, to coordinate. So it's the people themselves who come to the assembly and say, hatuna maji, hatuna barabara, hakuna dawa kwa hospitali. So the representative or the MCA is seated in that baraza, picking the views from the people directly. It's a revolutionary system of governance, and unless we employ such kind of a system that is radical, we're not going to fight corruption.
Right.
Because you cannot expect those who are overseeing, those who are executing, to oversight themselves.
Understood.
And that's a systemic failure that we have.
Okay. I worry about the fact that we don't, it's not the system, it's not the lack of a good system or good laws or good governance or good intention in the constitution. Oftentimes it's just personal greed, it's, things like that, right?
Correct.
So even parties on paper in Kenya should be very, very forward-facing, very liberal things, right? They're told you must have representation from at least half the counties or more. You must, you should have these many women, all that, persons with disabilities. But then at the end of the day, it still ends up being a place for whoever has the most money probably ends up on the ballot, right?
Correct.
What stops that from happening, even with independence? Because as much as you say the people will be your oversight,
Correct.
the people still are the oversight of the members of parliament right now, and the people in political parties. They're still the ones oversighting them.
They're the ones oversighting them, but the political parties protect the elected leaders, all right, from the people, because power is exercised through an indirect system. If you want to whip the MP, it's a political party that can whip the MP. If he does or takes a wrong decision, the parties have the power to whip. So if the party tells the MP, when you go to parliament, we expect you to vote yes for this
finance bill.
So he's going to be whipped by the party. So what we are saying is that, can we have a system where the members of parliament are not whipped by the party? They are whipped by the people. Thank you. Is that easy?
I like that too. I'm on his side, to be honest. Latif nimekuacha. Ni kama nimekuacha because
umevuka upande ule mwingine wa sakafu kwa mwendo wa aste na kujiunga na mada inayosema
we should elect independence as majority in 2027 because that was our exact problem during the finance bill. MPs forget that their role is representation and oversight and legislation. Then they were just towing the party lines. That's all they did. My party says vote yes, I vote yes. And even the ones who are meant to vote no had so much pressure that some of them are like, oh, I'm absent, oh, I'm not feeling well. Like, what is happening, right? So let's cut out this middleman called the political party.
Here's the thing, okay? How many MPs do we have now since 2022 who are elected on
right now? We have 13 elected members
independents.
Yes.
Do we feel their independence?
No.
Okay.
I think
how many governors do we have who are independent?
You see, 2.
Do we feel that? Who are they?
Correct.
Kawera Mwangaza.
Kawera Mwangaza has been superb. She's been actually been attacked by the political parties because she has actually proven that an independent leader, and especially a woman, is able to lead without the structure of the party.
That's true, Eric. Right. Kawera ranks highly when they do the rankings for best performing governors.
Yes.
She ranks
very
highly.
Who's the second governor?
There is a Taita Taveta.
Wavinya Ndeti. Oh, sorry.
Wavinya is not. Taita Taveta. Modime is also independent.
He's independent, yes.
And do we feel his independence?
I think the people of Taita Taveta have not shown otherwise because there would be perhaps a lot of complaints and perhaps protest even into his leadership based because he's not in a political party system.
Okay.
But so far so good for Modime. I hope that by 2027, we shall have at least half of the counties going independent. We cannot be an independent country unless we have independent leaders.
Joseph Munyi Goro on X says, I strongly concur with Bob. If we need to elect more independent candidates with no party affiliation or allegiance, but allegiance to the people.
To the people.
Okay, Riziki Dunstan says, poor thinking. We are a parliamentary democracy that underpinning voting more independent candidates actually disadvantages the independent leaders in the various houses more, since they are not accommodated by the standing orders. So the standing orders of the House may disadvantage them.
Yeah, we shall change them as we go. Okay. Those are the hurdles that you come across. But first, let's get into Parliament, then face those hurdles, and then change those hurdles through Parliament, because the same MPs who create those standing orders are from political parties.
That's true.
So if you have a majority of independents, they're going to change the laws to remove those standing orders that limit the participation of independent candidates.
Before you come in with YouTube, I know you have some YouTube comments.
Yes.
Duncan says, I agree 100%. What an idea. Damn.
Thank you.
What an idea.
Thank you.
Muthuri Eric asks, how can the number of candidates be restricted? If we're opening it up, that means we could have 1 million people running for presidency as independent candidates.
Correct. Which is freedom of choice. No, that's what we want.
It's a burden on the taxpayers.
No, not really.
You'll only elect one.
You only elect one.
No, but by the time we're getting to an election, if I have to print out a leaflet with 1,000.
It creates its own...
We can still do the same with political parties. How many booklets did you have in your ward for MCA in the last election?
For MP?
For MCA, how many candidates? I mean, on that ballot paper?
We had about, for independent, for all. There were about close to 20.
So imagine, there are 20 MCA candidates.
20 is already...
Political parties plus independent.
Our elections are already some of the most expensive in the world compared to per capita income.
And that's something we need to also address with the referendum, because we are proposing to create an e-voting system.
Okay.
In this referendum that we are having, an electronic voting system. As you've heard the last speaker who was here saying that we are doing e-citizen, all right? And very well, successfully so. We really congratulate. We need such entrepreneurs and people who can come up with such innovations. Why don't we have an innovation for M-Kura? You can vote while you're in the studio.
Unafungua short code, USSD code, star 3.
Yes.
You know why?
If we are transacting...
Open the server.
And the server can be open.
The server can be open.
Okay.
It will not be in France or Germany.
Yes.
Okay, but my thing was, we'll make elections, they could potentially be extremely disorganized, because if I have 1,000 people running for president, that means every other seat subsequent from there could have more people. Even if I have 15 people running for president and I have 20 running for governor, I have another 20 running for senate, I have another 15 running for women rep. You see how...
Yeah. Would you like to limit?
Yes.
And create a layer, something, mchujo that limits the candidates?
So by the mchujo will be just another form of a political party.
Okay.
Well, there's certain thresholds before you participate as a presidential candidate. You must have at least collected 2,000 signatures from a minimum of half of the counties. So I think that's a first
that one will
hurdle, which is going to reduce.
We've seen quite a few. Okay.
Perhaps we should strengthen the process of verification of those people who support. That's where you can then have fake signatures. Right? So how do we ensure that we have genuine people validating and validating the process?
Okay.
So our emphasis is on the electoral process, which we are again proposing to not to reconstitute IEBC, but to restructure the IEBC. Reconstitution has been done several times, but we still end up with flawed elections. What we need at this time is to restructure the IEBC, and that can only be done through a popular initiative under Article 257, through a referendum.
More YouTubers?
Yes, Timothy Kangere. Mr. Njagi's presence of mind is amazingly articulate. We ought to do a deep dive into the constitutionalism versus civic, and civic engagement, actually. Our Constituent Assembly can amend via referendum on what is best devoid of interest. So he's agreeing with you. Okoth-Opondo says, power to the people. Independent candidates are the way to go. Now, presidency is good, but Bob Njagi in parliament is better. That's Makina Makel Amadi Machel. It's Juta Samaje. So people seem to be generally agreeing with your idea. Yes. Now my thing is, I'm trying to think of the reasoning behind having, political parties, right, as a driving force and a form of representative democracy. It was also just to coalesce ideas, right? When the whole parliament, for example, is majority independent, who do I go to when I want to see myself reflected in some sort of grouping? I don't know how to explain that question.
Ideology.
Yeah, ideology. Nataka tu, yes.
You see,
We want to identify with
we
certain
want a
ideology.
parliament that is driven by issues. So the issues are going to rally the people. When we're discussing a bill on water, the issue of water is what should drive us, not tribes, not parties. You see? So for us to have an issue-based parliament, then it means we have to have more legislators who are independent that can focus on issues, not the tribal politics. So I think it's actually something that has not been done in Africa. But Kenya is always a start. We always, define the way for others to follow.
We do.
Yes.
My last worry again. If we, I'm such a Kenyan,
I thought
honestly.
you crossed.
I did
You
cross.
still have worries?
I still have worries.
Okay.
I've crossed. I need
You want to fine-tune it?
Yes, to fine tune and to figure out how
Yeah.
exactly this is all
Okay.
going to work. When we do this system where we're all, like, majority of us are independents, right?
Correct.
The powers that be will want to fight and to
Yes.
push back, right?
Yes.
How then do we protect ourselves from being co-opted or manipulated or bought? Hizo zote, in short.
Well, you've seen what has been happening even with the protest. There are some young people who have been bought by party A or party B. But the movement continues. The push from Kenyans continues. So when you're independent, remember, it's the people that have put you in that position. Not yourself, not your party, it's the people. So anytime you come up with legislation that goes against the will of the people, then it's the people again who are you'll have a backlash from the same people. That's how we want the people themselves to be the controllers of power, not the leaders. So I'm there subject to the people, not the other way as it is today, where the people are the subjects. Yeah.
So we'll be concluding soon. I'd like you to respond to two issues. One, on the presidency and the idea of the presidency and why Bob Njagi would want to be president of Kenya. And secondly is, of course, everybody knows Bob Njagi from your experience in the hands of abductors last year. Since then, I know you've taken a case to court. The last time we spoke, you were taking a case to court. How's it been? How's it been for you as a person?
It's been very challenging, having to deal with the trauma. My personal life has been very destabilized, my family life. I cannot do my business or my activities as I used to. So it's an experience that has changed my life completely. But I'm again emboldened by the fact that we were fighting for a good cause. And probably that's one of the reasons I'm offering myself to serve Kenyans, in that I believe that it is time for change in Kenya and in Africa. And we are the people that we want to be the change that we want to see. We have tried all these leaders before who've been in government, from both sides, but change is always elusive. I believe that I represent a majority of Kenyans who aspire to have a country that works for them. And we have developed plans, strategies that can transform this country in a very short time, socially, economically, and politically. Given an opportunity, I'll have to come and outline what plans we have. But I've just given you a hint of the kind of system we'd want to put in place, a people-driven government, all right? And it is a time. I believe it's a time, but it's up to Kenyans to decide.
We'll invite you again, Bob, to hear about this popular initiative that you're popularizing, and just look at the merits and demerits of it. One day, yesterday, and 2 weeks ago, we were having, on Wednesdays, we have a segment here we call Lest We Forget. 2 weeks ago, Lest We Forget was around what happened since June last year to now. Abductions, disappearances, deaths, arrests. And Our guest here was a woman who has lost her son and not seen her son since June 25th.
Correct.
Has been to hospital, morgues, police stations, remand prisons, not located her son, Junior.
Yeah.
Yesterday, we had a young man here called Frank who was shot on the leg with a live bullet and in other parts of the body with rubber bullets, suffered injuries, was hospitalized for long. And we're saying, lest we forget, even beyond last year, 2017, 2013 and beyond, there were people who were victims of these political skirmishes and heavy-handed response by government.
Yeah.
And in the MOU signed last week, President Ruto and Raila Odinga said this is one of the issues they're going to address.
Okay.
And ensuring that there is compensation for victims.
Yeah.
A, do you believe that this is going to happen? B, what's your message to Ruto and Raila?
Well, for the victims, especially the victims of extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances, it is only rightful that the state should compensate them. And that does not mean that they have accepted liability. It only means that they have taken note that Kenyans who are injured and have suffered irreparable damage, and as a responsible government, they ought to cushion the families in one way or another. As for justice, we have gotten assistance. We're getting assistance of some organizations from the human rights defenders to put together a case that is going to sue the state for such violations on human rights. But further to that, there is the international law on enforced disappearances, which the government is yet to ratify. Because if such a law was in place, it would then guide how such issues should be looked at. For instance, the ICC is at pains coming in to investigate because that law has not been ratified. Right. If the law had been ratified, the ICC would have already been investigating the abductions. So that law being ratified discourages such actions from happening in the country. My message to the Prime Minister Raila Odinga and the President William Ruto is that the country is not doing well. Kenyans are looking for a solution, and coming together in itself is not an end. All right, so it is their political right to associate. All right, we cannot hold them back to any political decisions they take, but they should bear in mind that the issues we were demonstrating against are still continuing. Despite the fact that they are working together, corruption is still been practiced in government. We have a lot of misplaced priorities. All right, the abductions are still happening. We are glad that the MCA for Wajir, whom was next to where I was being abducted, where I was being held, was released. Perhaps that's a sign that probably the abductions will end. Mine is just to say that Kenya is bigger than any individual. Let's do actions that unite Kenyans, not divide us further.
You were together with the Wajir MCA when you were abducted?
You said you were in adjacent cells?
Yes.
In adjacent rooms?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe we were. Well, I did not get a chance to open the door and look at him, but the little chance I got to peep, I identified the man. And later when I saw his images on social media, I could probably recognize this is him. And the dates coincided. The date that he was brought into that place was the same date that I saw that he was abducted on 13th of September. So I put everything together and I assumed that could be the person that was being held. I took a lot of courage to come out and say, because my life is still under threat, even as we speak. I'm still being followed closely everywhere I go. My phone is tapped. So I took a chance to talk about him, and I'm glad he's alive. I hope that will be the end of abductions in Kenya.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bob, do you know where you were held? It was 30, how many days?
32 days.
32 days. Up to date, have you got any idea where this was?
I don't know the exact location yet. Yeah.
Do you have any idea who was holding you?
definitely it was state security agencies. Definitely.
Why do you say definitely?
Because of, if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it must be a duck. Yes.
Where were you taken from?
Where was I taken from? From a bus while traveling from Nairobi to Kitengela at Mlolongo. Just when I got to Mlolongo,
Right.
as some passengers were alighting, then they got into the vehicle and took me.
Well, Bob, we thank you for joining us today. Thank you for shaking the mic,
Asante
for
kwa
bringing
mic.
this very radical idea and the very radical conversation, and for sharing with us, this plus other thoughts that you have. Radical, forward-thinking, as they are, we like them that way. Would you like to shake the mic? Well, what is your thought? What's your idea? You can share it on the comment section. You can also send it to us on our WhatsApp number. What's the number again?
0112 500 400.
Yes, and you will maybe be the one who then gets to shake the mic next. Thank you for tuning in to these conversations today. One conversation at a time, that's what we say. 4 conversations down, very many more to come. It's Eric Latif and Mariam Bishar. See you again tomorrow from 6 a.m. Have a lovely day. NTV, your world is coming. Nation FM, music is coming.